Good evening, everyone. Did you know that the most common piece of interview advice, things like reread your notes or run your answers in your head one more time before you walk in, is actually the worst way to prepare? And there is a 50-year-old memory study that proves this. Psychologists at Washington University split students into two groups. They were studying the same material. One group reread it 4 times, and the other reread it once. Then they both tried to recall it from memory 3 times without peeking at the answer key at all. 5 minutes later, the rereaders looked like the clear winners. They remembered 83% of it, and then the group that tested themselves only once remembered about 71%. If the study stopped there, then rereading wins, obviously. But 1 week later, they tested both groups again. The rereaders who felt so confident 5 minutes in had collapsed to only 40%. And the group that actually tested themselves consistently, the harder, the less comfortable method, they held on to 61%. So the version that felt worse in the moment, a little bit more like work in the moment, actually won by a landslide a week later. I actually have personal experience that applies to this similarly. I was the kind of person that could, write down all the answers right before a test and visually memorize them, or, draw out the map on the geography test and memorize it, ace my test 100%. But if you asked me any of that information today, I couldn't tell you probably one bit of it. That quick recall didn't turn into lasting knowledge and information that I could confidently answer and present to someone if asked. So this is exactly what happens if you reread your resume and rehearse your answers silently the night before an interview versus when you actually practice those answers out loud a few times, get comfortable, get told, what was wrong or what could be done better, try it again. Actually taking that time to get confident and committing those things to memory, not just having that quick recall, will help you ace that interview. So tonight we're going to build upon that second method, the one that actually works. And we're also going to talk about how we can use AI, that is the thing that keeps quizzing you back. So you can obviously use some of these skills with a friend or a family member or someone that has experience as an interviewer, but not all of us has that readily available, but a lot of us do have a phone or a computer readily available, and the AI can also be programmed to know exactly what to look for that specific job or based on your specific skill set. They can really tailor the questions, tailor the responses that they need to hear to you specifically. So we're going to talk about how we can do that. Now, if you're new here, then welcome to the Vitality Social Network. I am your host today, Melon, and this is episode 4 of the series we're doing that's all about AI in your career, how we can actually utilize this tool that we have at our fingertips to get the job that we want, because we know the job market is a little bit challenging right now for everybody. So the more effective we can be at building our resume or building our cover letter, the better. So we started off this series talking about how we find the job that is the right fit for us. We did have an episode all about optimizing your resume for the ATS, or applicant tracking system. That is kind of an AI program most resumes are put through these days. Episode 3 was about your cover letter. And again, both of these things we're still trying to just personalize them to you. We're not inventing new information. We're just making sure you get credit for the experience that you have. And then, of course, today is going to be all about how we can effectively, confidently walk into that job interview and ace that process, because this is the one part of the process where there's no second draft. You get one chance. It's live, it's real time. You can't edit, copy, paste, anything like that. You have to show up ready to nail it so that you get that call back and get the job that you want. So hi everybody, thank you for being here. I see SBR Academy, I see Ruby, you're here. Welcome back, thank you for being here. I would love to hear if you're looking for a job, like what is your dream job? What are you searching for? Would love to know that. And so everybody knows, here's the scale of what we're up against, okay? So 93% of people report feeling anxious about job interviews. I mean, that's nearly everybody, right? I've had plenty of experience both as the interview and the interviewee, and I still get anxious. About half of job seekers say that the search itself is actually hurting their mental health. I know a lot of people that have been looking for jobs for months. It might take 6 or 8 months to finally get a call back even. So we're trying to figure out how we can optimize that process and get you all of the callbacks that you want for your dream job. And here's the number that actually explains why interviews stay this hard no matter how many of them you do. Only 41% of candidates say that they have ever received real, specific feedback on an interview that they gave. So think about that. Most of you have been playing this game for years that you almost never even got a scorecard for. You walk out and you have almost no idea which answer landed, which one lost the room, and why you didn't get a call back, but then you have to go in and do the same exact process next time. So tonight we're going to fix that problem. Here's what we're going to be covering. So first is the retrieval loop. This is the actual science of why practicing out loud beats reading your notes or reviewing or thinking about it silently. We'll talk about 5 rules for building a feedback loop that actually works. We have an opportunity to do a live AI mock interview demo. We'll do our signature segment on real or hype and whether these AI interview tools can actually do things like read your body language or build your confidence. And then we'll do kind of a full callback on what we've learned so far and some practice prompts that you can actually use right away and apply immediately. So it might take us, half an hour, 45 minutes to get through all of this information. But once you have it, these are concepts that you can use easily in 10 minutes to feel confident and master that interview process. So thank you everybody for being here. If you're the kind of person that usually preps for your interview by just reading your notes or your resume one more time or practicing silently in your head, give me a thumbs up so that I know that applies to you. Yes, the interview is the most dramatic thing. I mean, you get everything is made or broken on that moment, right? You know you're skilled, you could do the job, but are you able to effectively convey why you're the right fit for the job to choose you over the 100 other applicants that they had? I mean, no pressure, right? Someone says, Credix, thanks for being here. The one reason I love Indeed's little AI mock interview that grades your answers and tells you how to do better. Yeah, that's one reason he loves it, because it actually gives you feedback, right? You're not going in blind, answering and thinking you did well and then having no idea what could have been done better. I mean, we all get nervous and then, get that self-doubt talking in your head, but I love that sometimes you perform well under pressure. So sometimes you can just show up, give it your all. That's a skill to have. I'm sure everybody wishes they had that skill, Ruby. All right, so let's go back to that study for a second, make sure we understand the mechanism and the reasoning behind why tonight's entire method actually works for us. So, rereading does feel productive. It does. Your eyes move across familiar words, your brain lights up with recognition, and that recognition feels like knowledge. Psychologists call this the illusion of competence, but recognizing an answer when you see it and producing that answer from nothing out loud under pressure are 2 totally different skills. So, Ruby, it sounds like that's a skill that you have where you can act under pressure. I feel like I perform a little bit better under pressure too. Like I think about projects that I have and I'm ruminating, but if I know it's due in an hour, boom, I can get everything out and I'm doing really well all of a sudden. And an interview only ever really tests that second one. I mean, it's not going to matter if you think you can do well. What matters is how you actually show up and perform. So retrieval practice is forcing yourself to produce the answer without looking, without having your notes or your script or anything like that out next to you. It's sometimes harder in the moment. It feels a little bit worse. And so that's exactly why the stakes are turned all the way up. The struggle is to pull the answer out of memory and wiring it for the long-term memory. A real interview is retrieval practice with, with those high stakes. So the closest thing that you can do is not to rehearse it or not just to reread it, but it's to be asked those real, genuine questions cold and having to answer it live, answer it in a way that comes naturally. So that's also why memorized like word for word scripts can be a trap. I mean, sometimes it can help be a starting point, help build your confidence, help you know what to say, but you cannot just like recognize and recite because you're not going to be visually seeing those questions. They might ask the questions a little bit differently. And so the moment an interviewer asks you a question that's not the exact one you rehearsed, then your memorized answer breaks. And you have to be confident, rebuilding it a few times, using slightly different words each time. And that flexibility will allow you to confidently answer it no matter how they ask the question. So it helps to say it out loud in a natural cadence a few different times so that you're prepared for a real conversation, real follow-up questions. So the goal tonight is not to just write a perfect script for every single question. It's to build that feedback retrieval loop where you get asked a real question, you answer out loud from scratch, and then you get told specifically what did work, what didn't work, and then let me try it again and go through the same process. So the AI mock interview will actually give you that feedback on demand as many times as you need it. And I'm going to show you how exactly we can do that over the next 20 minutes. So if we haven't heard already, are you like Ruby? Are you someone where you can just show up and nail your interview? Does your interview prep look like just rereading your resume a few times? What is the process that works well for you? I would love to know. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can give you 5 rules for a feedback loop that actually works. All right, hopefully everybody can see my screen here. I want to also make sure we can see the chat, so I'm just fixing that a little bit. You guys are very engaged today. I appreciate that. All right, so what you can see here. These are the 5 things that make a mock interview actually prepare you from the ones that just make you feel busy, right? You spent all this time rereading your answer, but did it actually prepare you, set you up for success? That's the real question. So rule number 1, use real questions, not generic ones. So, okay, I have some examples of some generic ones that I'm thinking, right? Like, why are you interested in this job? Or tell me about yourself. That's a great place to start. You might want to have some example paragraphs or scripts written out so like what are my key points that I need to hit. But it's not going to then train you for the specific follow-up questions that interview is asking in real time. So you do have to get a little bit creative with some of those realistic questions. Tell me more about this experience, right? You have to be prepared for those follow-up questions. Rule number 2, answer out loud every single time. So not in your head, not typing it out. Speak the way that you actually would speak in a real life situation. Silent review is just like rereading in disguise. It's not actually going to transfer to that in the moment conversation the way that you need it. Rule number 3 is score against a rubric, not just a vibe. So don't just say, was this good, was this bad? Did you like it, did you not like it? You need to have actual criteria that they're looking for, the structure, the specificity, the relevance to the role, not just how did it sound, because that good job is not really going to teach you anything we can act on. So we will talk about a structure called the STAR structure today that you can utilize in your AI prompts. Then rule number 4, fix the flagged answer in the same session. So if the AI flags a weaker answer, redo it immediately, right then, while the feedback is fresh. Don't just wait till later. That usually means never. Don't wait till you're done with the whole process and kind of just keep going through the motions. Go ahead and work on it, master it right then, so that you won't be tripped up by that end up being the one question the interview actually asked and you weren't prepared to nail it. If that's your weak spot, then spend more time on the weak spot. And then lastly, rule number 5, space your sessions across days, not one quick cram. So today specifically, we are going to be cramming this all into, one conversation, how you can prepare, right? But you can take this information and practice it over the next several days, because that will actually help that long-term memory. A meta-analysis of more than 300 memory experiments found that spaced out practice consistently beats the same amount of practice crammed into one sitting. So 3 20-minute sessions this week will outperform one long, hour-long session tonight. So if you're actually watching this on the replay and you're following along with the different demos or questions that you have, you might even start with, one prompt, practicing it several times for 20 minutes, mastering it, and then coming back and continuing along with the next 2 prompts. That could end up being a more effective way to get that information to stick in your brain. So we do have the opportunity to actually run an example, and I also want to show you a few things that ChatGPT was able to provide for me as a resource. I thought this was really cool. So first we have our prompt here. We can say, here is my resume. Here is the job description. So in both of these cases, I took my real resume, my real experience, but I tweaked it just a little bit to make it more anonymous. So, we're going to practice safety a little bit here, right? But it was able to provide some of that information for me. So it took my real resume, and we can see here I have my professional summary. We can see my core strengths, all of my experience. And I just love knowing how quickly AI can pull out that information and turn it into an effective resume. It's kind of cool. So if you're interested in figuring out how you can create a resume that is optimized for the ATS applicant tracking system, then go back and watch one of our previous episodes so that you can get one of these made for you. And it's not just generic, but it actually is going to help you get the specific job that you're applying for. Similarly, it was also able to pull out a specific company and job posting with the opportunity and key responsibilities. So if you're applying for a specific job, then you want to actually copy that whole description and paste it into your AI tool whenever you're creating a resume or a cover letter or practicing for your interview, so that the questions that they end up asking are going to be more tailored for the actual job that you're going for, or your key words that you end up filling into your resume are going to be more tailored to the actual job position that you're looking for. So we went ahead and set that up specifically here. And then we're also going to ask it, like we said, we need specific criteria. I don't want it to just ask me some questions and then say good or bad, right? So what we have here is a criteria called the STAR structure. So score the answer from 1 to 10. The STAR structure is specificity, relevance to the role, evidence/results, and then my delivery. So tell me the weakest part, and then ask one realistic follow-up question before moving on. Don't praise me unless you can name exactly what worked. I also gave it an example question. So let's go ahead and send that and see what we get. Kind of curious to find out. Whoop, whoop. All right, I'm gonna close my chat for one quick second here, just so that everybody can make sure that we can see you. Give me 1 second. Want to make sure you can all see what's on the screen here. Whoop. Oh, I see who. You can see everything clearly too. Maybe I'll just move the chat down here for now. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm using the AI tool on my computer, and there's a couple of things that I can do with this. So first, it does have the option to actually read it out loud. If I go to this here, I can also use a microphone tool where it does speech to text. I also have the ability to do it on my phone where it's actually a conversation back and forth. So this one says, tell me about a time that you had to create a scalable training solution for people with very different levels of experience. So, oh my gosh, that is like very specific to my job, right? That's an example of something where, I mean, it's not quite tell me about your job, tell me about the responsibilities that you had, but it's really looking for a real life example. And if I hadn't practiced my answer, it might be a little bit rough. So let me think here. I'm going to use the dictate button. So it's going to listen to what I say, and then it'll type out my answer as we go. And then like we plugged in, it'll, grade it, and it'll tell me the weak areas and how I should possibly redo that. So create a scalable training solution with people with different levels of experience. Okay, so let me think of the strongest example. The closest relevant experience that I can think of would be a time where I had to create a week-long training for onboarding new franchise owners to learn the core responsibilities and how the business ran. And the foundational structure of this training was essentially a front desk manager training. They had to learn how to sit in that seat and run the business from inside out. So I really created a comprehensive front desk training, but I made this optimized for people of varying levels of experience. So whether it was for a chiropractic company, so whether you knew about chiropractic, whether you knew about sales and front desk training, there were all kinds of tasks or prompts that we could do, activities worked in, role-playing, e-learning worked in, where we were tailoring it to someone with the base level, little experience as possible. And then some of these different activities could be optional. So if you are already a master of chiropractic, then maybe we check that box. We don't have to do the chiropractic e-learning. If you are already a master at the sales training portion, then maybe we could do a few less specific examples there. So I did have it tailored to the person in front of me's experience level. Okay, obviously I just made that up on the spot. I'm going to press check. It's going to hear me saying that too. It's still dictating, but but you could tell, I'm a little bit nervous, right? That was my first time saying that out loud. I thought about that a little bit already. I actually have some examples written out for me. It made this very cool guide to have all of these type of answers, but if I didn't say it out loud, I'm stumbling a little bit, right? So it's going to include all my all my thinking. I'm going to send that, and we're going to see what it has to say, right? Okay, so it said, solid first attempt, but we're being strict, so I'm going to score it like a real hiring manager. For the star structure, I got a 6 out of 10. All right, I explained the situation and the action, but the task wasn't clearly stated. The result was essentially missing. Oh, okay, that's a good point. So I created this comprehensive training structure, but I didn't explain the impact. So saying, for example, after my training, we realized that all of the new franchisees were more effectively set up for success. And then going forward, they were able to, achieve profitability in only 90 days and 6 months instead of 6 months or something like that, giving the actual impact from this specific answer. Specificity. So the franchise owner and onboarding and optional learning paths felt concrete, but several phrases stayed broad. So activities, role play, e-learning. I could have been a little bit more intentional when what type of activities, what type of role play that we were doing. Relevance to the role. So this was excellent alignment to the specific job posting that I used as an example here. I got a 9 out of 10 for that. The evidence slash results, we already mentioned that. I didn't actually mention whether all of that worked or not. Was it effective? Did I do all of that work and then we ended up with the same result? It's important for me to have some kind of, numbers or testimony to demonstrate the real life impact of what I've done. And then my natural delivery. It was conversational and believable, but a little searching for words at the beginning. However, it sounded like a real interview rather than something memorized. So I'm sure you guys could feel that too. I was searching a little bit. I was stumbling a little bit. I think that made it real, but if I had done this 2 or 3 times, then it would have sounded much more confident, much more professional and precise. So obviously we know the weakest area. As an interview, they were waiting for the payoff. Like, okay, I listened to you, 90% of it was all about what you did, but you never told me why it mattered, what happened because of it, maybe the issue that we had before that I was able to solve through this process. And, I know all of those things in my head, but I hadn't practiced on applying that to the information. So it then gave me an example of structural rewrite using only mind facts. So I love this. So I'm going to read this one out loud. And then if I was actually going to use this, I would need to practice just recalling it a few times without reading and memorizing the words. So at my previous company, I was responsible for creating a week-long onboarding program for new franchise owners. My goal was to help people with very different backgrounds learn the core responsibilities of running the business. I built a program around a comprehensive front desk manager training because I believed that understanding of the role gave owners a strong foundation for how the business operated. And since participants came in with different levels of experience, I designed the training to be flexible. It included role-playing, activities, e-learning, and coaching that could be adjusted based on the learner. For example, someone already experienced in chiropractic or sales could skip certain foundational modules while someone new would complete the full curriculum. And the result was a scalable onboarding program that could be tailored to each learner while still delivering a consistent training experience. Okay, so that's obviously way smoother than the way I said it before. And it had a little bit of a stronger ending there because I hadn't mentioned any outcomes before. And AI did not make up outcomes either. It took what I said. It wasn't saying, and afterwards, we improved the company by so much or started giving percentages or revenue or numbers. It's not going to make up something that you don't offer it. It's just going to help you, do what you do and reflect what you've done more effectively. So then my follow-up question is, how did you measure whether that training was actually successful? That's an incredible follow-up question. And as you guys have heard, that would be me needing to prepare. Maybe I have, a quick bullet point list of like some key numbers on, did we save time with a training that was more effective? We used to train people for 6 weeks, and with this training, now we can get it all done in 1 week with the same level of impact. Did we improve the ability to reach profitability sooner or later? What was the actual result of that training that proved its success? So I love this as an example follow-up question. All right, so we're going to pause here. If you've made it this long, I would love to know how you guys are doing. If you've ever tried anything like this using AI specifically for your job searching process. I heard somebody say they used the AI Indeed interview process. We showed an example here on ChatGPT. I kind of want to show you an example on my phone a little bit too, where it's actually more of a back and forth. But we're going to pause with our signature segment, which is Real or Hype. So, real or hype time. Tonight's claim is that AI interview tools can actually read your body language and your confidence to score whether you'll get hired. The verdict on this one is that it's mostly hype, and the industry's own history actually proves that. So one of the largest video interview platforms in hiring, HireVue, spent years scoring facial expressions and eye movement. And in 2021, they dropped it entirely after a federal complaint and independent audit. So the company's own data scientists found that all of that visual data, the face, the gaze, the expression, contributed about 1/4% to predicting who would actually perform well in the job. So it was not able to effectively tell you if that candidate was going to actually succeed in the job's activities and requirements. It was nearly worthless, honestly. So it created that real bias against candidates with disabilities, facial differences, different cultural norms around expression. You can think about how the way that you express yourself or some of these other things would change entirely how that's going to score you, but not reflect your ability to do the job. So in 2025, a study came out of Virginia Tech that tested the specific advice you've probably heard, which is, stare directly at your camera, to fake eye contact, make sure it looks like you're paying attention. And across 2 separate studies, deliberately simulated eye contact had little to no effect on how interviewers actually scored people. So to be fair, the research isn't unanimous. A separate study did find that looking away from the camera entirely, maybe you're really shy, maybe you're looking at your notes, maybe you're thinking, if you had something like that, it did lower scores somewhat compared to looking at it. So presentation isn't nothing. But it's not just the soul reading, confidence scanning system that a lot of people imagine. It's not quite as effective as we might imagine. So the content and the structure still carried most of the actual weight. So that being how you actually answered the question, the quality of your answers still was the majority of the weight in how you were scored. Now, the part of this claim that's real is that a large study in 2025 ran more than 360,000 identical fictitious resumes through 5 major AI models and found that there was actually a consistent bias. So the models favored female candidates while scoring Black male candidates lower, even if they had identical qualifications. So that's actually a real documented problem, and it's exactly why states like Illinois or cities like New York actually legally require companies to disclose AI use in interviews and audit these tools for bias, so that we don't have issues like that where people who are well qualified or maybe getting ranked poorly for some of those reasons. So the verdict is no, AI is not reading your soul or your abilities through your webcam. The idea got tested and largely was retired by the industry, but the system screenings can carry real, measurable bias, and that's a policy problem worth knowing about. So it's not a reason to perform differently in front of your camera, and you really should just focus on the quality of your answers and your confidence. So practicing that so that you can have that recall more effectively and quickly. I would love to know if you think about your real last interview. I want you to score yourself from 0 to 10 on how prepared you actually felt walking in. So not how well it went, but how prepared you felt before you knew the outcome. I actually had my most recent phone interview, phone screening type conversation, this morning. And if I had to rate myself, let me think about that. If I had to score myself 0 to 10 on my preparation, I would say maybe like a 6 or 7. And only because this was, it was a job that I had done before. I wrote out some bullet points on, why I wanted to return to this job, what I had done effectively in my previous job, what I was looking for in terms of a schedule and that kind of thing. And so I felt overall pretty good about it, but fortunately, he didn't throw me any hard curveball questions, but he did ask me at the end, do you have any questions for me? And I hadn't really prepared for that, so I just came up with something off the top. And fortunately, that recall helped me that I had actually, been in that job before, and I was able to ask a question about maybe what's changed in the past few years and, what kind of retraining I might need in order to be set up for success. So, that went well, but I probably could have taken some time to apply these skills. So I'm coming from someone who has been a hiring manager, but I've also been interviewing. I've been applying for jobs. I'm trying to get back out there and elevate my career to the next step. And so I'm trying to learn all of these skills and share them with you as I learn them. And I would love to hear from you all if you're interested in joining our group Discord. If you're applying for a job specifically and you want a real human eye to look over your resume or to give you feedback on how you could make it a little bit more effective, how you could use AI tools to help you prepare for that next interview, that when you get it, when you land it. I would love to speak with you one-on-one, so click the link for our Discord in the description and feel free to message us there and get the community support feedback, or you can DM me directly or comment here on the replay what kind of job you're looking for, anything about your experience that you want to share. I would love to help support you in this process. It is a tough industry right now, so the more that we can help you guys, the better, that's for sure. So Ruby says in the chat that many people overlook the the importance of asking the interviewer questions, but it's actually one of the most important parts of the interview. Exactly. So you want to know, like, what does it take to succeed in this role? Why are you hiring at this time? What didn't work out about the last person? What would you hope to see? Like, what impact could I make? What does success look like for you guys? I mean, I don't know, anything. They want to see that you're engaged and that you're actually excited about joining this company, being involved in the mission and the work and helping them succeed. And that I can tell you personally that there was one time I interviewed for a position, and I was ready. I was like, what kind of software do you use? What is your training like? What do you need from me? I was asking all of these things, and I think that level of engagement showed them that I was serious. I was taking this job seriously. I did the time to do my research, but I wanted to learn even more. I wanted to make sure that this job was the right fit for me, and obviously that I was the right fit for them. And I think that really impressed them, that engagement level, that I wasn't just saying, nope, I have no questions, see you later. But I actually took the time to vet each other. So I would absolutely encourage that as well. All right, so we do have another example that we can share here. Let me see. I want to share my screen, but I think I'm also interested in potentially using my phone for this one. So I'll show you this other example that you can use as a prompt. So we have the fictional job description again, and my resume, and the company snapshot here. So you can ask the AI, act as a senior interviewer, ask me one behavioral question that uses my strongest matching experience, one question that directly probes an honest gap, one question that tests whether I understand the company's operational tension, and then use the star structure. But I want to show you kind of a cool tool on how you can do this with your phone, so it actually has a conversation with you back and forth. So let's see, I'm going to start a new chat on ChatGPT. And I'm going to, I press the button that pulls up this dot, and I'm going to say, act as a senior interviewer at Thrivewell and ask me a question that probes an honest gap in my resume, and then score my answer on the star structure, which is all about structure, specificity, relevance, results, and tell me whether I sound informed or generic.
All right, got it. Here's your interview question. Looking at your resume, you've moved across roles in training, operations, nutrition, and clinic management. Tell me about a time when a hiring manager or a stakeholder questioned whether your experience was directly relevant and how you handled it. Give me your answer out loud, and I'll score it on structure, specificity, relevance, results, and delivery. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me think about an example of a time I had that experience. So I have had varied experience. One time I applied for a job at a center that supported the elderly, and I was able to explain that in my previous job positions, while I hadn't necessarily supported that direct client population, I was still performing the job requirements needed. So I was able to lead the staff, oversee the training program, and I'm all about operations. So in my my first time I step foot into the company, I'm going to learn your business inside and out and then be able to apply the skills that I have. So in that situation, I wasn't able to have experience with that target population, but I did have transferable experience that could still be used for that population. Oh my God, that was terrifying. Okay.
Thanks. That gives me enough to go on. Here is your score. For star structure, 4 out of 10. You had a situation and some action, but no clear task or result. Specificity, 3 out of 10. You stayed high level. Relevance was 8 out of 10. That part was strong, making the case that your L&D skills transfer. Evidence and results, 2 out of 10. There was no outcome or data mentioned. Delivery, 5 out of 10. You sounded sincere, but a bit generic. Phrases like, I'm all about operations, are common, but not very vivid. The single weakest part is the missing result. What actually happened? Did you get the interview or the offer? And here's a realistic follow-up. Can you give me one specific example of a transferable skill you highlighted and how you connected it to that organization's needs? Want to give that a shot?
No, I don't. Okay. Oh my God. All right. So I'm like panicking, and this is a fake interview with AI. You feel me? Oh my goodness. So this is an example of why it's absolutely worth trying this and using some of these prompts where you have those challenging questions that are specific to the job or address your actual resume that you have to be prepared to answer these questions about. Because I feel anxiety heavy just from doing this fake example for you guys here live. So it's worth taking some time to practice this, to get confident, to allow it to give you this feedback. And what if you feel like the AI's feedback is wrong or is too harsh? Okay, honestly, take a breath. It's just a robot, okay? It's fine. And it's not a verdict. And if it doesn't feel right to you, I can always ask it to explain its reasoning or run my same answer past a real person, a friend, a mentor, a family member. Tell me how a human might respond to my real answer, because sometimes I am a little bit more conversational and personal, and I'm not always tightly professional when I answer these questions, and it's not a perfect judge. It might be looking for something that a real person might give me a pass on. I might be able to charm them with my answer. I don't know, right? So you want to get these different perspectives, but you should still take its feedback to heart, because it depends on the type of job that you're applying for. Maybe the level of experience that job's requiring, or the level of responsibility that you'll have. And professionalism and confidence and having concise, effective, eloquent answers might be a critical part of the role. If you're going to be responsible for training and teaching other people, you need to be able to explain yourself well. So it's worth taking the time to practice this. I would love to know if you guys have any specific questions about how to use the AI tool or how to set yourself up for success in an interview. You can certainly take some of these prompts and try them out yourself, whether you want to use the web version or you want to use the version on your phone. I definitely think you could take away and use these skills right away, but I'll go ahead and answer a couple questions that I get, my frequently asked questions. So one is, how many mock interviews should I actually do? And the answer might be fewer than you think before it actually starts helping. And like we talked about before, instead of spending an hour, maybe you do 10 minutes a day. And so that way, just saying it out loud even one time will prompt in your mind, oh, this could have been better. That could have been a little bit more effective. And then once you do it a second time, you're much more likely to polish it up, to nail the key points that it's looking for. And then by the third time, it's going to be locked in. I think any more than that, you should just move on to the next question. You should move on to the next focus point. So spacing is kind of a better idea, spacing it out, than just spending an hour practicing the same question over and over and over. just 2 or 3 times of trying this out will really help build your confidence and build your ability to answer these questions effectively. You might also want to ask yourself, is it even worth, performing for an AI screened video interview versus a human one? I mean, I think it depends what your goal is, because not everybody has someone that can provide specific critiquing other than good job, that was good, or no, that wasn't good. And so if you're looking for something specific to practice, you can enter that prompt into AI and it can judge you on your tone, your confidence, your verbal fillers, your specificity, your results, whatever it is that you feel like you need to improve on, you can tailor your strategy with AI. So I definitely think there's a great value in using this tool to set you up for success. But, the goal is not just performing in front of a camera, practicing your eye contact. The goal is getting you confident and giving yourself credit for the experience that you already have. And if you need help with humanizing it, then call a friend. You can use both tools. I also sometimes struggle with drawing a blank when I get nervous. I definitely can freeze under pressure. And so if you're taking the time to just read your answers, scanning and thinking silently about your answers, that probably won't help overcome that freezing that happens. You really have to be able to pull it out of muscle memory and take the time to practice out loud against real follow-up questions so that you won't freeze and all that information that you read and had that, visual cue won't disappear and be hard to pull back when the answers are a little bit different. So absolutely take the time to practice out loud, but there's a lot that AI can do. I just want to show you one more time real quick, a really awesome thing that the AI built for me as I was preparing for this stream today. So I have a takeaway toolkit that is going to be incredible to use going forward. So let's go ahead and switch back to my screen share so I can show you here. All right, so I have all of my prompts that I can copy and paste. Incredible. And then I have this master prep sheet here. Let me pull it up so you can see. You can also see here it has my resume, my job descriptions, everything else that I might need, right? I'm going to move my chat over to the different side of the screen so you can see it all really well. All right, so, oh no, something went wrong. Let me just refresh here. All right, I also have a printed version of this if I need it. First, I have a one-pager where I have some anchors. It says tell me about yourself. And it says here 6 numbers that I can use, actual results that I've mentioned before. It's very cool. I also have here my top stories that I can share. I have bridge lines. So let me think of my strongest example. The main action I took was, I don't want to invent a percentage, but the evidence I can stand behind is X. It gives me a lot of specifics that I can actually say. It gives me some example questions that I can ask. So this one-sheeter is very helpful, but then it built it out into a 13-page guide with actual questions, actual answers. So let me show you some of those here. It's pretty awesome. So tell me about yourself. I can practice reading that and getting confident. Why are you interested in this role? Why did you leave your last role and what are you doing now? Why should we hire you over someone else? And then it goes on and on and on. So it can absolutely help you come up with, a comprehensive prep document. So you can practice. If you're the type where you need help getting started with your scripting, you can read it out loud and then work through that until it comes naturally. So AI is your friend in this situation, and we want to use it to help set us up for success. So some of your takeaway prompts that I want you to try this week, spaced out, maybe one per day. Your first one is the mock interview simulator. So here's my resume, here's my job description. You act as the interviewer and ask me one question at a time and then score it before we move on to the next. And like we talked about, you can use the tool on your phone where it's an actual conversation back and forth between you and the AI. You want to actually, the second prompt is to make sure it has a rubric to follow. We used the STAR rubric, so situation, task, action, and result. And tell me the weakest part. And then the third one is the confidence debrief. So of all the answers that I gave today, which one was the weakest and why specifically? And ask me 2 follow-up questions that would force me to strengthen that exact answer. Don't let me move on until I've had a better version out loud. So all of these should provide you some idea of how AI can help you become really prepared and really confident to ace that interview so that you certainly get a call back and get the job that you're looking for. And if you're still struggling to actually get the interview, then go back and watch some of the previous episodes that we had. Now, for our next episode, I'm really excited. I hope that you will get more interviews. I hope that you'll ace the interview. And then we'll also be able to talk about negotiating the position. So let's say that you actually get offered the job and you want to be able to prepare with a counter offer and having exact language that set you up to get the schedule that you want or get the pay that you deserve or get the benefits that you're looking for. So how can you navigate those conversations effectively with your body language, your tone, the actual questions or research that you use? We're going to talk about how AI can help really set you up for success with that conversation. And that way, you're going to position that company to say yes to you without you ever having to threaten to walk away or take another position. We want it to be natural so that everybody gets what they want and it's a win-win and you get the job and the pay that you deserve. So thank you all for watching today. I really appreciate you being here and sticking around for this series, and I wish you all luck in your job search. So you